Hi, I'm Deborah from Fish Museum and Circus. In this video, we're going to make heart tooth fairy pillows. So let's look at the materials we're going to need for this project. You're going to want to print out the heart tooth fairy pillow pattern PDF that comes with this video. The big heart is going to be for the pillow and the small heart is going to be for the pocket. And you can use a variety of materials for this. This is felted wool, and these are the local farm girl hand-dyed bundles. And these are such beautiful colors, and they come in a variety of different colors. So this is the felted wool, and this is wool felt. This one has this really fun metallic heart pattern on it, and these are solid colors, so you're going to need some felt, and I'm going to show you how each one of them works. And then for fun, because felt balls are always fun, I'm going to have a variety of these little felt balls, and you can use different sizes and different colors if you want. Whatever you want. It doesn't have to be your typical heart colors. It can be whatever you like. And then you're going to need some basic sewing supplies. I'm going to use a sewing machine to sew my pillow, but you could really do the entire thing by hand. The first thing I'm going to do is cut out the pattern pieces. We're going to put the pocket pattern piece aside for later and use the pillow pattern piece to cut out the front and the back of the pillow. I'm going to show you how to do two different ones, one with the felted wool and one with the wool felt. And this pattern will fit right onto these pieces that come in the felted wool bundle. And what's fun is that then you get one side one color, one side a different color, and you can make them very close in color, just kind of two different tones, or you can have more of a contrast, or two completely different colors. So I'm going to do these two pieces that are kind of closely related in tone, and I'm going to take some pins and pin this on, and then cut out the two pieces together. I'm going to take the pattern piece off and then repin this for sewing. So now I'm going to cut one out of wool felt, and I want to use this really fun print for one side. And then maybe we'll just do the white for the other side. Maybe the pink will end up being the pocket. We'll see how that goes. And I'm going to kind of put this over to the side. If this was not a directional print, I might put the pattern right in the corner to eliminate as much waste as possible, so we still have a big piece that we could use. But because this is a directional print and I want the hearts to be going all straight down the pillow, I am going to put this right straight up and down, although I will move this over to the side a little bit so we still get a strip for another project in there. Now, because I'm going to sew this on the sewing machine, and because this has the print only on one side, I'm going to flip this over and then pin them together, because I am going to be sewing around the edge and then turning them inside out. So now we have these two pillows ready to sew. So I'm at the sewing machine, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance to sew around the outside of the pillow. I actually have a 1/4 inch foot here, and that's helpful if you have one. And when I start sewing, I'm going to start a little bit up from the point, maybe about an inch. because this part over here is one of the straightest parts of the heart. And that's where we're going to turn it inside out and sew it up again. And that makes it a little bit easier. You don't want to go straight from the point because it's harder then to get a nice finish on the point when you're trying to hand sew it together afterwards. And what I'm going to do when I get to my point is I'm going to reinforce it a little bit. Just go back a couple of stitches when I have turned the corner so that it's still a point, but it has a few extra stitches right there. When I get to the tighter curve, I'm going to do a couple of stitches at a time. And I have my hand on the foot lift here, the presser foot lift. And I'm going to go a couple of stitches. And then I'm going to lift it a little bit and turn. Couple of stitches, lift it a little bit and turn. It's very helpful if you have the needle down feature where the needle will automatically stay down when you stop the machine. If you don't have that, you can use the flywheel to make sure that the needle is down, like that. Now, when I get to this inner point, I'm going to go back a couple of stitches, forward a couple of stitches, turn the corner, go forward, go back, and then go forward again. I want to make sure that's very reinforced on that inner corner. And then you want to leave about 2 inches of space. Now we're ready to sew the other pillow. This is the one that's made out of the wool felt. It's a little bit more stable, not as stretchy, but we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start about 1 inch from the corner. I'm going to add a couple of extra little stitches at the bottom of the point. Couple of extra stitches at the inner point. Before we turn these inside out, I'm going to clip the seam allowance so that we get a smoother finish. So on the point, I'm going to cut off this extra here. You want to be really careful to go close to the threads, but not clip them. And I'm going to just take a little bit off the seam allowance here and a little bit off the seam allowance here, so that when this is turned right side out, these seam allowances will be inside here, but there won't be any extra bulk to cause problems in the point. Then I'm going to do some clipping around the curve, making sure to not get too close to those stitches. And then when we get to the inner point, we're going to clip right up to the inner stitches, but being really careful not to clip through them. And you can see why we've now put some extra stitches in there, just to make sure that when we turn everything inside out, we don't end up with a hole. And I'm going to just trim a little bit off right there. And then keep going around the curve. I'm going to Cut that point off again, but not get too close. Clip around the curves. Clip that inside corner really carefully. And then clip the rest of the curves. Now we can turn these inside out through the hole that we left. You want to be careful when you push out that point so that you don't end up making a hole. And I like to sometimes just take a pin and just really careful, just tease out that point, just a little bit. Now we're ready to stuff the pillows. You can use any kind of stuffing that you like. This is a wool stuffing, which is very nice. And I like to use this stuffing tool from Benzie. It has these little prongs at the end. And I also like just a blunt dowel. You can use a chopstick. Be really careful if you use something like a knitting needle. You don't want something that's too pointy. That'll just go right through your project. If you're going to use this stuffing tool, it's great for grabbing little bits and getting them right into points and little smaller places. So I've just put a pin in. I've turned under the seam allowance to make sure that it's inside and put a pin in just so that it will keep holding everything in place as I get started here. And I'm going to hide the knot on the inside. Take a stitch in one side, go directly across, and take a stitch on the other side, go across, and I'm going to keep going until the opening is entirely closed. So now the opening is sewn closed, and I'm going to knot the end off. And then hide the knot inside. So I love using felt balls for different projects. I just think they're a lot of fun. They're easy to sew on, and they come in lots of different colors and some different sizes. With this one that I made before, I haven't actually put the pocket on yet, but you can see how I used some different sizes and different colors kind of randomly around the edge, and it just kind of creates a lot of fun and makes things just a touch more whimsical. So I think for this one, which has all of these colors here, I'm just going to use one size and one color. And I have these very bright pink felt balls. And then for this one, I have a multicolored bunch. And we'll see how we're going to arrange those to make a really nice edge. So I'm going to start sewing the felt balls on at the point, and I'm going to put the knot right at the point so that it's hidden under one of the felt balls. I've doubled my thread here to make it a little bit stronger. I'm actually going to take an extra stitch to make sure that that's really secure in there. Then I'm going to take one of the felt balls and make a little stitch in the ball, about 1/8 of an inch. Now I have my thread coming up just to the left of the point, and I'm going to put my needle down just to the right of the point, and then back to the left about, I would say about 3/4 of an inch. So now I have the first ball on the point. You can, if you want, figure out how many balls you want to use or how many you have and mark off all the way around. I tend to be much more kind of free form and just take a guess and adjust as I go, but however you like to do it is fine. So I'm up here and I'm going to take another ball and make a little stitch in there. And again, I'm going to go back to the right. It's almost like a back stitch, but making a big second stitch when you come up. Make sure we don't have everything twisted up there. Okay, there we go. So now we have the first two. And I'm going to do the same thing again. And you can see they're not evenly spaced exactly, and that's okay with me. If that's not okay with you, just measure however you like. As I'm getting closer to the inner point here, I want to have one right on the inner point. So I'm just kind of adjusting my other felt ball so that I can get one right on the inner point there. This one I think is maybe not quite far enough over. So I'm actually going to not back stitch it, I'm going to forward stitch it, but then go back in the original direction so that I can kind of position it right where I want it. And then I'm going to stitch it again and get the needle into that center point. And this one I'm actually going to sew on kind of front to back and take a couple of stitches front to back so that it sits right on the inner point. So for this heart, I have an assortment of colors of the felt balls, and I have more felt balls than I used for this one. So I'm going to put them a little closer together. I think I'm going to start with the red one right at the bottom. I'm going to take a little stitch like we did before and go backwards. And this time I'm going to go and make a stitch that's not as long as I did before. On the other heart, I used a stitch that was maybe about 3/4. This is closer to 1/2. And let's see what happens. If I use 1/2, they're going to be closer together. So now we have this one done also. I actually decided to leave one of the felt balls out because I was getting a little tight around here. I could have probably eliminated that problem by marking everything, but I think it worked out just fine. And I like this kind of rainbow, semi-rainbow order that it goes around there. So now let's decide on the pockets. I've used the heart pocket pattern to cut out felt for each of the pockets on each of the pillows. And for this one and this one, I've pinned them right in the middle. But on this one, I've pinned this kind of at an angle. So you can really put the pocket anywhere that you'd like. And we're going to sew them on in 3 different ways. So let's start with this one. And for this one, we're going to do a really simple matching thread that will then just be an overcast stitch around the edge. Now we don't want to go all the way around the edge because obviously we want the pocket to have an opening. So I'm going to start about here, and I'm going to hide the knot kind of inside the pocket. And I'm going to take 2 stitches at the beginning and at the end. And I like to do that just for some added strength, especially in a pocket where those are the stitches that are going to get pulled at the most. And then after going in for the second stitch right on top of that first one, I'm going to go over just a little bit to make the next stitch. And then I'm going to do that again. Now that I'm at the end of the bottom of the pocket, I'm going to take 2 stitches, and then I'm going to tie it off inside. So I folded this back a little bit so that I can make a little knot and hide that inside the pocket. you can actually sew the pockets on before you sew the whole pillow together. You can even do it by machine if you'd like, just a little stitching around the edge. But I like to do it after the pillow is sewn together and after the felt balls are on, so that I can really see how it's coming together and where I want the pocket. And sometimes I'll decide on a different color than I originally wanted. The next one I'm going to do is this one, and I've chosen to make the pocket the same color as the background, and I'm going to use a contrasting thread to sew it on. So for this one, I'm actually going to start at the bottom of the point, and I'll show you why that is when we go around. I'm going to hide the knot inside and come up just about 1/8 of an inch in from the edge. And then I'm going to make a running stitch. And I'm going to make the running stitch from here to here that will attach the bottom of the pocket. Then I'm going to make the running stitch just on the pocket, and then I'm going to go back to attaching it over here. So I'm going to take these little stitches so we get this nice little contrast. So to make it a little bit stronger, where the edge of the pocket is, I'm going to go over it again, but this time I'm going to not go through the backing. I'm just going to go through the pocket. And I'm going to continue to just go through the pocket around the top. Now I'm back to the point where I want to attach the rest of the pocket to the pillow. So I'm going to take a stitch but go back, and I'm attaching it to the pillow. And then going back over that same stitch and continuing on like we did on the other side of the pocket. Now that we're back down at the bottom of the point, I'm going to just hide the knot underneath that little bit of felt there. Now let's sew this last pocket on, and this pearl cotton is actually variegated, and it's a rainbow variegation, so it should look fun with the rainbow felt balls on the outside. This was also pearl cotton. This was regular sewing thread. I'm still going to do the overcast stitch, but I'm going to do them a little bit bigger because this is a little bit thicker thread, and also it is a decorative thread. These sweet little pillows are really great as tooth fairy pillows, but are also great for anything else that fits in these fun little pockets, little love notes, and any kind of other things you can think of.